Hi, everybody. This is Andy. It is the morning of September the 14th, 2020. So I haven't made a video about the Excel file in, I think, almost two months now. So I wrote my entry exam last month. Hopefully I get positive results really soon. I know there's a delay with with the July group. So I wrote on August the 9th, so hopefully mine won't get delayed either. But anyways, what I did was I was meaning to sit down and work out I guess one of the requirements for evaluating continuous work. And I'll just get into it. So for example, in foreign skilled worker, you have a scoring for the duration of work that an applicant has. But not only that, but there's an eligibility factor too for work. And this is something I alluded to in previous videos where I said, well, you know what? Aside from points, you have this requirement here. So you have the case of where the applicant needs 1 year of continuous work of 1,560 hours, and it could be met in a few different ways. So if you have somebody that's coming over, wanting to come over to Canada with a extensive work history, I mean this is pretty well laid out in front of you already. But if you have somebody that is, maybe doesn't have quite a long work history or has been working part-time jobs or several short, full-time jobs, you want to see if you can maybe fill one of the other requirements. So, for example, equal amount of part-time, 15 hours a week for 24 months, or full-time or more than one job, 30 hours for 12 months or more than one job, where there's no overlap, and this is my interpretation, where there's no overlap, no breaks, where it could possibly 1 or 2 day overlap, obviously, but where there's no breaks and it's continuous. So what I've done to try to equate this is what I've done is this. So I've got a little button here that sorts out the work, and it will count the number of hours that you've keyed in based on matching the the applicant's principal knock code. So you put in the knock code here, and for example, I've got all a sample work history, and what I've done is I've put in some rows where, for example, this person uh, has some experience doing computer programming in Hong Kong. Realize, oh, I want to pursue this as a career, but I don't have any formal training, and Canada is a good place to get training in that. So a little bit of work experience in Hong Kong comes over and goes to a school. And maybe the English isn't so good, so the first job, when they come over, is actually in something else. So what I'm trying to do is see, what kind of continuous work that this person could have in these two roles, and in this case, I want to see what the duration of work are combined, like coming from these two roles part time. So that's what this macro does. So this first part of the first part of the video, I'll just show you just by clicking it that it'll calculate everything for you. But I also wanted to show um, because it makes the calculations far easier. This macro also sorts the data too, and not only that, but I put in some conditional format. So So let me just show you really quick. So when I mean conditional formatting, I mean I got this column and this column to turn on a certain way. If there's something that I wanted the user to focus on. So this column has one conditional format in that if you have a subsequent row that predates the earlier row, it'll highlight it in yellow. So, and then this column over here and you see it working already. I put in a red background if there's something, if there's a subsequent row that predates it, where it's like a substantial overlap. And in this case, this is okay, because I wanted to show, oh, this person went to school, didn't end in 2018, but you know, during school, this person actually found a part-time job. So for example, I'll just show you really quick. This one will turn to yellow. So say, you know, you're keying in something by accident, 2001. So you see that the other rows, they all turn yellow here. It's like, oh, wait a minute, you know, this row is substantially earlier than everything else. And every single one of these rows turn red. And that's because of the conditional formatting. So now I will click this row, and it should sum up the value of these two rows here. So for foreign skilled worker, I'm summing basically everything from 10 years forward. So I accounted for that as well. All right. So I will click it. And here it says in NOC 2174, longest duration of work is 1,387 hours. And it ended on 2018, September the 1st, which is the combination of these two rows here. So it's this value and this value. And if you look down here on Excel, the sum is 13,887. So the macro I wrote is smart enough to skip over anything that doesn't match this NOC code. The logic also incorporates the fact that for foreign skilled worker, the NOC code has to be a NOC 0A or a B. So for example, I think it just won't even work. If I do something like this, where you know your principal NOC is 63, 16. Oh, and let's make sure the second digit is a 4. I'm just obviously flying by the seat of my pants a little bit, but okay, 75. Okay, here we go. Then they shouldn't give me anything. It just, you know, it just went through, and none of these rows match. So that's how that worked. Okay, so back to 2174. So anyways, I just wanted to show this really quick, and I'll be posting this up on Google Drive as well. And because foreign skilled work has this requirement. Oh, and by the way, when I clicked on this, it outputted this. Also note that I'll probably be moving this around later on too, but I've got a grid of these calculations for foreign skilled worker. I've done an earlier video on this. I'll probably have to redo it, but I also put those values into these two cells here, so that, you know, when you have these two requirements, you can say, well, you know, I've got 1,387 hours so far continuously, which ended on September the 1st, 2018, which is basically, you know, this value here, and it took into account the hours that the applicants worked in this period of time too. So anyways, I'll be adding to it as well, because I know other provincial streams also have this type of requirement as well. So I'll be incorporating that into the logic. So this took me a little bit of time to debug. So the next part of this video, I'll show you how the VBA works. All right. Thank you very much, and I'll see you for part 2. Hi there, welcome back to part 2. So I mentioned 3 technical, well, 1 technical feature that I put in. The other 2 is just conditional formatting. So if you click on conditional formatting, it's not a right click. So in this column, I mentioned that I checked to see whether any of the dates here on a particular row uh, coming after it the date is actually before that row. So for example, here I'm saying this person worked worked from January 1st, 2015. And in my previous demo, I said, well, okay, what if you accidentally key in something like this? And they all light up. How we did it is this. You go conditional formatting, manage rules, edit rule, and I said, if the subsequent rows came earlier than this row, then set the background to yellow. All right. So I'll close this up and I will remove this. Now this is back. And the background of this one is red because some subsequent rows on the start came before it. So on this column, I'm just checking to see if something preceded it. On the end, I'm checking to see if there's any overlap from this row's end date to a subsequent start date. That's the first one. The other one I also put in, and it's very similar, is that if there's any error, say this is, well, actually, no, I'll go up here. 2015, I'm saying, is the start date on January the 1st. What if you accidentally key this in the end date of 2014? So I set the background as the same red, but I made the font bold. And this is obviously impossible. Why would you have a start date that came after the end date? That doesn't make sense, right? So I didn't want to put in a harder constraint, but that's what I wound up doing as a conditional formatting. So on this column, I have multiple rules there. So one is the bold, where this value in this field is smaller than the start date. And similarly to the start column, I'm checking to see whether anything subsequent, and that's why I'm using the min column. Any of the subsequent rows, the start date came in before this row's end date. All right. So those two calculations are pretty straightforward. If you're not familiar with conditional formatting, lots of documentation on how to do that, and I made this file freely downloadable so you can play around with it too. Okay, so the coding behind the button now. This took a little more work, substantially more work actually. So I wrote a little bit of VBA coding, and here it is. So I'll basically just walk through how it works. So basically, I've got to set up some variables here, and I'm always checking the start date and the end date. And I also have an analysis date. And if you recall, what I've got is if you wanted to do like a scenario analysis where you say the date isn't the current date, the date is some date in the future, like 2022 or whatever. You put it in here, and this is the analysis date. I've incorporated that into the calculation as well. And not only that, but if we go up here, because I know for skilled worker, we're only looking at the last 10 years of data. I actually filtered that out. So, even if by accident you key in some work in 2001, and ended in 2001, I'm not counting those hours. All right. So let me just go back to the PBA. So the first command I'm saying is sort this data in ascending order. So for example, if I have 2001 or 1 by accident, again, I just go crazy. 2001, hopefully it doesn't blow up in the face. 1, right? And I'm saying, oh, maybe working in food and beverage again. 30 hours in Hong Kong. Just gonna copy this down. So it shouldn't really change my work for that particular requirement knock, but if I do this, click it, see what happened? It shifted that row I keyed in to the first row. So that's the very first command in this line of VBA. All right. So the first thing it does is, that's the first thing it does. It sorts it. Now I'm saying down here, this first check, make sure that the knock code, the second digit of the knock code is greater than. If it's greater than 3, don't do anything. And what that means, obviously, if the job is greater than is not in a knock 08 or a B, it doesn't qualify. All right, so I have a loop, meaning start from the top and go down. And so here, the first command I say is sort it, and then what I do is I go to the first row, which is here. Oh, actually, I've been there. I'll unhide it. The first row is here, and I call it row 0. Go iterate through all these rows until it hits down here to the row last. So, basic going as a typewriter on the start from top, go one row at a time. And what I'm saying is, save the start date as a variable. Calculate the hours per week. And here is where it does a lot of the work. I'm saying calculate the duration. And this is a little long to read, but in essence, what this line of code does is essentially the same thing as this. So you see this long formula here. That line of code does the same thing. And in actuality, in the table, for reporting purposes, I wanted to show the number of months and the number of part-time hours. In the code, I do it in one shot. So in actuality, this calculation is probably a little more accurate than what I'm displaying. All right. So what I'm doing then is I'm going through, and then if I have a number of hours, what I've done is I've calculated the number of hours here. If it's a continuation of a previous row, I add it together with the previous value. Otherwise, it's a brand new, I guess, set of rows for that particular knock code. All right. So the only difference between these two lines is this has a variable. I'm adding it to the previous value plus the value of the current row, versus, oh, it's a brand new set of rows. I'm starting fresh. So that's the first thing it does. As it's going through, I have another variable called max, and here is where I'm looking for the largest value. So when we ran this, I get the value of 1,387 hours, which is the sum of these two rows. Note that in our example, we actually have this person working that particular knock in these two rows. And so how I'm differentiating, like which set is larger, is basically based on this chunk of code here, right? And then the last thing I do is once it's hit the end of the loop, I've got these values here, and then I write it out to this part of my spreadsheet, so that you know, on September the 1st, ending on September the 1st, 2018, this person has worked 1,387 hours in that particular knock. So I print it out here. Okay, and that's basically it. I obviously, you can see how much code I had to comment on. I had to debug this several times, so it seems to be pretty stable. The duration, the minus 120, that's 120 months, and that's taking into account the fact that similar to the spreadsheet, I'm only looking at the last 10 years worth of data. So, and I explained how the max function worked between the start date and the e-date function. All right, so didn't want to get too technical, but at least I wanted to, walk you through how this particular chunk of code works. I'm going to be adding more stuff to it because I know, like I said, other streams have a fairly similar read requirement too. So I'll be putting it into tying the logic into this button, so then the other streams will get a similar calculation, much like this, but this if and that will be put on the other reports as well. All right, so thank you very much. That was a little technical, but you'll have access to these spreadsheet files. You can play around and work with it too. Thank you very much, and I'll be obviously coming back and creating some more videos. If you have any comments or have any ideas for me, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you the next time. Thanks. Bye.